Let's get more reaction now to the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill. One civic organisation has welcomed the removal of Clause 8 of the bill. Let's tell you more about that as we speak to Aadielah Maker Diedericks, Southern African Alcohol Policy Alliance Secretary General. Thank you so much, Aadielah, for your time. You've always advocated against Clause 8 of the bill, and this would have seen liquor possibly sold at school functions and sometimes for fundraising purposes. You must be relieved looking at the latest developments.
Good evening, and thank you for having us. We are definitely relieved that Parliament, the Portfolio Committee, has listened to communities and to civil society. There has been large numbers of people that have objected to this clause. And so we are very glad the Portfolio Committee has made this decision. What we do, however, look forward to is for Parliament to quickly adopt this bill so that we can actually move on. We do have a challenge that the Western Cape has already got a law that says that schools can sell alcohol to raise funds. And so the key issue is how do we now, from this point, move forward and get the Western Cape government to also change its law so that we can have a uniform law across the country that makes sure that alcohol is not sold at schools and that children are not exposed to alcohol at educational institutions.
And I'm going to get to that part in just a moment, but you say that you're hoping that it can be quickly adopted. It's still going to go for debate, then go to the NCOP, then to the desk of the president. Are you hopeful that it will pass through with no glitches and we'll simply see it being adopted, or could there be delays from where you're sitting?
Well, from what I understand, because I attended the Portfolio Committee when they were having this, making this decision, and there is absolutely support anonymously for the withdrawal of this particular clause. However, there are clauses in the bill that we know that there is not complete agreement on, and that is the challenge that we are facing. That the bill in its entirety would have to be adopted and not be challenged on some of the clauses that the different parties have disagreement on. What we would call for is that the Department of Basic Education withdrew this clause, so they understood that communities across the country did not want alcohol to be sold. So we would want to urge Parliament and the DBE to, if there is any challenge for any of the other clauses, to actually make a firm decision to just completely withdraw this one at this point in time, that it's not further delayed and open itself for more challenges and for communities to have uncertainty around this issue. It is unfortunate that the parliamentary process needs to go ahead in the shape and structures that it has. But we do believe that government can actually make this decision to just withdraw the clause.
And when we look at, for example, reading your statement, you talk about something that even other civic organizations have raised is around the issue of children and alcohol and how big of an issue it is in schools. There's something else, though, that I'm keen to hear your thoughts on and what has been happening over time, was that we saw, for example, in Gauteng, where there was that, that law, but it wasn't enforced, that, schools must not be, be in a place like 500 meters away from a tavern. So taverns must not be built closely to schools. And this is still, in some of the communities, we see it as a big problem. And I wonder, when you're looking at this particular picture, how much of an issue is that, given some of the alcohol challenges that we're seeing in our schools?
Well, that is precisely the point, I guess, is that we have a government where different departments are making different decisions around alcohol. We don't have a coordinated and cohesive alcohol plan where we begin to look at how do we address alcohol harms. And that is what is urgently needed. We have the Liquor Amendment Bill that has been stalled in Parliament and in the Ministry of Trade and Industry since 2017. And in that particular bill, it calls for a national uniformity around a radius around educational institutions. So somewhere in our system, we have a stuckness where we are not able to move beyond certain points around legislation. So the one thing is that we need to ask the presidency to actually, if we look at the commitment around GBV, where it says that GBV is a national priority that needs to be addressed. Alcohol harm, and GBV is closely related to alcohol. Alcohol harms, therefore, needs to be elevated to be coordinated at the highest level, that the presidency needs to put in place an interministerial committee that looks at making sure that all departments speak to this issue, but in a coordinated fashion, that you don't have the DBE calling, as in the Bella Bill, saying that schools can sell alcohol. And then on the other end, we are having the National Department of Health having to deal with the consequences of alcohol harm. We saw during COVID that when you reduce alcohol sales and its availability, it reduces the cost to the country. And that is what we should be working towards. The fact that we have had more incidences like in Enyobeni, where children have died, is a serious issue that the government at national, provincial and local level should be looking at.
And as you say, a cohesive plan in order to deal with all of this, and one integrated approach is needed. Let me thank you for your time, Aadielah. Do appreciate it. That is Aadielah Maker Diedericks, Southern African Alcohol Policy Alliance Secretary General.